don't get your own pronouns, just like you don't get your own prepositions or your own adjectives. It's like if I were to tell you, my adjectives are handsome and brilliant, and whenever you're talking about me, you have to describe me as handsome and brilliant because that's how I identify. It makes no sense. You don't get your own pronouns. That's grammar. That's language.
So you think it's a delusion? Someone is self-delusional?
Yeah, I think it's delusion. It could be mental illness.
Female inmates at a supposedly all-women's prison in New Jersey have just become pregnant. You wonder how that happened. Well, it turns out those women had sexual encounters with another inmate who was a biological man passing as a woman. Now, some people predicted that this would happen, and they were laughed at, mocked, and attacked as bigots. Kara Dansky is at the very top of that list. She said this years ago on our show. She's the president of the U.S. chapter of the Women's Declaration International, author of the book, The Abolition of Sex, How the Transgender Agenda Harms Women and Girls, and we are happy to have Kara Dansky back. Kara, thanks so much for coming on. I'll never forget the first time, and it had to have been at least 4 years ago, when you said, if we keep going down this path, we're going to have biological men in women's prisons. And you were right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Though the story that's happening in New Jersey is obviously horrible for so many reasons. We need to not have men being housed in women's prisons. But a couple takeaways from this that I just want to point out are, first of all, the state is not getting away with this by telling its residents that they are housing men in women's prisons. What they are doing, of course, is telling the residents that they are housing so-called transgender women or trans women in women's prisons, suggesting that there is some sort of subcategory of women that is called transgender women or trans women, and it's not true. The fact of this story shoots a hole right through the trope that trans women are women. Our society has been taught that we are supposed to say and think that trans women are women, but obviously that is not true, because the individuals that are the focus of the story impregnated women, and every thinking adult, no matter what the President of the United States has to say on the matter, knows that there is no category of women who can impregnate women. So I really want to thank you for highlighting this story. And I also just want to point out that this is not just a problem in New Jersey. This is a problem across the country. I know that we have talked previously about how the state of California recently enacted a law at the end of 2020, which went into effect in 2021, which mandates that men be housed in women's prisons on the basis of their so-called gender identity if they say that they are women. Washington State has a similar policy. However, this is not just happening in blue states. This is happening across the country. As far as I know, 49 states plus the District of Columbia have some form of law or policy in place that mandates the housing of men in women's prisons.
Why is it left to you and J.K. Rowling and a couple of others to point this out? Where are the physicians who know perfectly well that what you're saying is true, the biologists who know it every bit as well? Why are they going along with this when they know it's a lie?
So the entire medical establishment in the United States has been captured by so-called trans ideology. And what I really want all Americans across the political spectrum to understand is that trans is not a civil rights movement to protect a marginalized community of people. It is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that is pushing this. It is paying the medical establishment. It is paying most media outlets. It is paying our government. It is paying our schools. It is at all levels, elementary schools through college, to push the idea that the material reality of sex does not exist, and that what is more important than the material reality of sex is so-called gender identity. This is all being pushed by a multi-trillion-dollar industry in the guise of a civil rights movement. It's all a lie.
And these
times every day just to get me to act like a boy, to toughen me up.
We as trans women are very challenged on a daily basis here, and especially in this environment.
Okay, let's go to the mat. Come on, girl.
A lot of the programs here are designed for male inmates because this is still a male institution. We have to fight constantly to gain ground.
Right now what you're gonna do is get your heart rate up, okay? Keep pedaling, and let's try and find your heart rate.
While I fought endlessly to get the gym program up and running, it took a long journey. It was a long fight. But I was able to work with staff on talking to the right people to get it done, to be able to let our hair down and wear our makeup and our gym shorts and our tennis shoes, and to be able to shoot hoop and do exercise programs so that we can have our own safe environment to be able to be who we are.
Good job, Peaches.
Hi, I'm Kat. I've had a pretty decent week. I had one little incident that kind of perturbed me a little yesterday, and now
I don't think I can ever really say I feel safe in prison. And in my first prison, I got raped. And I immediately cut all my hair off, grew facial hair.
So we were showering yesterday, and someone thought it was appropriate to come to the shower and start talking to us about different things while we're in the shower, a staff member. So much so to call me out of the shower to come over to the door to talk to her.
Did you invite them in?
No.
For me, with each prison, I just became more aggressive, more masculine, and more brash, more rude. You know, I got into more problems than I needed, but it kept me from having to worry about getting raped. It was like living a role as an actor. It was like a gut check. Every day I stepped out the cell, I had to make sure I had my attire right. You know, I had the right walk, the right approach, the right timbre in my voice. So I had to act like the toughest person I could find. And after a while, I just couldn't do it no more. I kind of started having a little mental breakdown. I just couldn't put that image on no more. It was too painful.
I'm glad to see all my sisters here today.
I'm glad to be here today. I'm glad that all of y'all showed up today to come to the group, to be supportive. I love to see us in unity. We better in numbers. I always say that. And the other thing, hopefully everybody received their applications for their transgender identification cards. I see Ms. Henderson got hers today. They will have your name on there and what you identify as, female, she, her.
They still feel that we are men, because I had an officer that tell me, well, you're still in the men's prison, so you're a man. So I had to write him up.
On the good side, when I went to the board addressed me as a she, and it was in my transcripts, I was a she. I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting, because I didn't think that was going to happen.
If you're going to have something implemented, do it across the board and actually train them to do it. And if they don't...
It's frustrating. Institutionally, it's like trying to move a boulder. They're very much used to doing what they, have processing things the way they do it. So change doesn't come easy here.
The sentence in coming to state prison, that's the punishment, right? There shouldn't be an additional punishment. You shouldn't be required to identify a different way simply because you committed a crime and you've been given a sentence. We're so accustomed to being a binary system, and what we recognize now is because we have this very diverse population, we also have to make some accommodations.
I'm Rachel. I was sitting in my cell with just my bra on and my shorts, facing the wall. That same AW came in and read me the riot act, told me...
Being a transgender person, even in the community, can be difficult. And so we are having the same conversation in the prison setting.
When I'm at my bed area, that's my area, and I can dress as I feel.
You're in a dorm setting?
Yep.
Ms. Rachel? Okay, in the dorm setting, we as transgender women should dress accordingly. We are wearing bras, panties. We must have our nightgowns on.
I mean, as a woman,
Yes.
you should want to be covered. I mean, for me, I keep my muumuu on.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't care how hot it is. They big enough, they blowy at all times.
Yeah.
If you don't learn to pick up a weapon and fight right along with the dudes and die with them, then they're not going to accept you. And if you get cut, you just get cut. What you do?
I know some girls are going to want to stay here because they want to be around the men. But if you identify as a female, then I think you should be housed around females, and I think that would eliminate a lot of the problems of being sexually assaulted, or being raped, pressured.
Do you want to go to a woman's prison? Well, hell yeah.
Sex reassignment surgery, I'd love to go over to the female institution instead of this.
I wouldn't like it because I love men. I'd rather be right here with a bunch of men instead of with a bunch of women. You know what I mean? So that's it.
Okay. I just want to share with y'all, I also submitted paperwork in for more items to be placed in the canteen for y'all. Various foundations and makeups will be added to what we already have.
This is the first prison I've ever been to that actually had a transgender community. It was actually probably the biggest load I've ever taken off my shoulders when I just stopped saying I was going to be, you know, what everybody else wanted me to be, and just be myself.
I just wake up like this. We're picking up the pieces of our life. What are we going to do when we leave here? We want to be productive people in society, so we have to start with ourselves, building ourselves back up. But I tell them constantly that you're beautiful, you're a better person, you can be anything you want to be. You know, things that their parents should have been telling them.
This one is for my eyes, the volumizing. And I love my pinks. My mascara. And I cover up my gray with it. Just a little bit on the side, a little bit on the side, you know.
Our goal is to make it normal. It's, of course, a lot of work because there's a lot of policies that have to be changed that have been set for a very long time, but I think we're getting there.